Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. We're starting the third day of Decision Camp, and our first presenters are from the Netherlands, and both Vincent and Annemieke have a lot of experience in what they call the triangle composed of rules, processes, and data. And they recently applied decision modeling to the digital system for the Environmental and Planning Act that will take effect in the Netherlands next year. And it was apparently quite an interesting use case and challenging use case. They needed to extend DMN specification, and I'm looking forward to hear about this experience. Please take over.
Okay, thank you, Jacob, for this introduction. As was introduced, Annemieke, Vliegen, and myself are going to present a whole new rule management solution in the Netherlands, which is largely based on DMN. We both currently work for Rijkswaterstaat, which is one of the development partners in this program. This very big program where, well, several organizations from the Netherlands are working together to set up a new digital system. My role is currently the product owner for the rule management solution, and Annemieke Vliegen is the business analyst in my team and also our ambassador for the nationwide implementation of this solution. All further information can be read in our bios, also our email addresses. Okay, what are we going to see in the coming hours? Sorry, I can talk about hours for this, but we only have an hour. Well, after the brief introduction, I will say something about the goals of the new Environmental and Planning Act, where the new smart digital system is an important component of. Well, this system is supported also by new standards in the Netherlands, of which the standard for applicable rules is of main interest today. This is a new standard based on the DMN standard. Also, we will further elaborate on how this system works, especially also the part of the rule execution, and which challenges we had to overcome to make it all work. And of course, we try to spare some time for questions and answers. But if there are any questions, well, please put them forward. Well, we will have a new Environmental and Planning Act in the next year. Well, let me say something about the goals of the new act, to put everything in a perspective. The current legislation in the Netherlands is well, it's rather scattered on in the fields of the environmental law. We have more than 20 laws and well, more than 130 further regulations for land use in residential areas, and that are only the laws from the national government. Every community, every separate authority also has well, a very extensive system of regulations, and every regulation has its own starting point, its own procedures, and its own requirements. Well, that makes that current spatial projects take very long and are very complex for the people who have to perform the projects. And it takes very long to get projects off the ground. Well, for instance, we have currently a housing problem in the Netherlands. There are well, not enough houses, but it is not possible well to make quick plans and get projects off the ground. So therefore, the whole legal system is being revised, and the new Environmental and Planning Act we'll see will come to life next year. And in this new act, all the existing legislation, so all the 26 laws, will be combined in one law, and only 5 further regulations. So that's not only a big IT challenge, but it's also a very big legal challenge to well to get all the law part working. Well, then further, what are the main purposes of the new law? as I said, it's also not only getting rid of too many regulations, not only from the national perspective, but also for the local authorities. Some local authorities also use over 100 land use plans in their environment. And well, as I said, that makes things too complex. But also, and that's a very big aspect of the new law, the changing culture will make that that we will change from a regime of, well, no, you can't do the project, to a more benevolent regime where projects are more warmly welcomed by the authorities, and also are made up in cooperation with the authority. So earlier in the process, a project is discussed with the authority. So if things are not really according to the legislation, things can be changed in the project, and so the whole system of setting up a project will be more clear to the one who is doing the project. So the whole regime will be more benevolent. And also a very important thing, as you can imagine, with the enormous load of current legislations, there are a lot of doors a citizen has to knock on to get a decision. Also, the goal of the new law is there will be only one authority who will make the decision, facilitated by one portal. And this, of course, is supported by a whole new digital system, which has a special focus on a new rule management solution to also support a quicker change process in the regulations and also in the rules which are used in the system. We have a complex structure of authorities in the Netherlands, and all the rules from all the different authorities have to work together in the new system. And we can explain that as the layer cake, and that's something Annemieke will explain a little bit further.
Yes, thank you, Vincent. All the legislation and regulation making authorities are divided in different layers, so to say. So here you see the Netherlands as a whole, as the federal authority, divided in 12 provinces, all making their own laws and regulations. On top of that, we have the Dutch water authorities. Those are 21 different ones, which you can also see the borders of those are not exactly the same as the provinces. So they all have their own grounds. They're all geographically bounded, and they have their own rules and regulations based on water laws. As you might know, the Netherlands are based at sea level or below sea level. So water management is very important for our country. On top of that, there are 352 municipalities, some larger, some smaller, but a lot of them divided over the entire country. And together, seen from the side, so to say, you get a layer cake. So you have all those layers of authorities with their legal activities, legal regulations, and based on where you want to do something, where you want to start your project, you have to check if you need a permit for one of those rules and regulations. So based on your location, other rules apply in different compositions, and that's what we call the layer cake. So everywhere you are going to do your project, you have to check what is applicable for my specific situation, which is underlying under our digital system.
Yes, and this new digital system, currently the system is not coherent. We have different systems for different purposes, and even also different rule management solutions.
You mute. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, we don't hear you.
I don't have anything to say. Vincent is speaking now.
I was speaking, but I'm not on mute, am I?
It's me.
No, you're not.
I can hear you.
Okay, well, thank you.
I don't hear you. Let me check.
Okay, I think it's a problem with Jacob.
Oh, it's my problem. Sorry.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll
ahead.
go on. Well, as I said, the current scattered legal background is also reflected in the current system, which is composed of several applications, standalone applications, also based on outdated rule management solutions. So a better information provision is also the main goal of the new environmental law. And that's even part of the law which states that a new digital system will be available. And this system replaces all current applications and is completely well, rule-driven, and also the machine-readable text on which the decision rules are based are also part of that coherent system. So everything connects through the digital system. So let me take me to a high-level overview of this smart digital solution. So, well, we have a new law which states that there should be a new digital system, which will be a one-stop shop for all citizens, companies, and the authorities themselves. Well, in order to do that, we have set up quite a complex architecture. Well, you probably can't read all the words in this slide, but that doesn't matter. I will take you through the system, because it all starts with the local systems, which are used to either make the legal documents. We call them the official publications, so the new legislations. But also the rule governance system, and there are also systems to be able to deal with the applications that are received in the system. So the system starts with a few interfaces. So there is an interface for the legal documents. After a legal document is set up in a local system, it is uploaded into the digital system, and it is also made ready for an official publication, as every law in the Netherlands has to be publicized. After that, there's also a central repository in the system, of which the legal objects, which are based on the legal documents, are stored to be available for use in the whole system. As a legal object, you can think about a location, or everything that you can read in a legal text. There's an object made of, so it can be used in other components. I will get back to that a little later. So those legal objects also make it possible to provide a legal document viewer, where everybody who is interested in the legislation or the legal rules can view the rules. And because there are machine readable texts, you can also search the documents quite easily. For instance, on specific activities or specific locations, or even specific functions of the legal document. And then, of course, we also have an interface for the decision rules, because, as I said, the whole system is based on a rule-driven solution, and all those rules are made also by our local authorities and provided through the interface, which on his turn provides the rule engine and the rule repository with all necessary rules to be able to execute in an applicant's portal, where an applicant, based on the decision rules, based on the official publications, can do a permit check. Do I need a building permit? Or even can do an application which gathers all application requirements based on the legal activity he is doing, based on the location where he's doing that. So it only needs to answer the relevant questions for his location and his project. Well, of course, he can apply for a permit, and then we have also a new interface where applications go back to the local system, so an authority can decide on the application. we have a connection with all official registrations in the Netherlands. So information which is already known in a registration. For instance, if your house is a monument, we don't need to ask that to the end user. We can take the information based on the activity and based on the location from the official registration and use it as an input for the rule engine. So we can decide on some decisions without going to the applicant for information. Well, we have some government building blocks, for instance, geometry collections or authorization components. It's not really that important for this topic. And everything is connected to services. And the services, are provided through a central hub. And that connects all the different components in the system. Interesting to notice that we have an open system. So every service we use in the digital system is also available for instance, for companies who want to build a system of their own, or who want to provide their services to specific applicants. They can use the system and use the services that even the services the rule engine provides for the applicant's portal. If they want to, they can build their own applicant's portal. So that's also part of the system. We see here the front end. Sorry, it's in Dutch. But Annemieke has prepared a demo to guide you through to the rule-based applicant's portal, based on which uses all the components I just highlighted. So I'll give my screen to Annemieke now.
That will be in a few minutes. Before that, I want to introduce you to this screen, which is the applicant portal, and to introduce a concept to you, which is the real-world activity. As we already mentioned, there are a lot of legal activities that different authorities can put into place based on their geographics. So if you want to do a project on a specific place, you hit several legal activities, but not all legal activities are written for someone to make them easy to use. So we have a concept called a real world activity, which combines several legal activities of different authorities. And this is a user-friendly way of combining different rule sets, different laws. And what you see on the left side is the composition of legal activities connected to a real-world activity. All those legal activities have a DMN file underneath. So Vincent will explain later how we did that, how we built that standard. And those DMN files are used in the portal to ask questions. So the question 1, question 2, question 3 will be asked to the user. And for the user, they will just select a real-world activity, and the thing on the right, all the questions in the different question groups will be asked to the user, which does not see very specifically that he is answering questions for several legal activities, because they are sometimes in difficult language or not logically connected for his perspective to this real-world activity. So this is a concept which is behind the workings of the portal. And now I'm going to do a demonstration, a live demonstration of how this works. We're going to do a permit check, and a bit of the application of the permit. What you will see is that it's completely rule-driven. We draw conclusions based on the legal grounds derived by facts given by me as a user, and the use of legal objects from legal documents. And what you'll see is a translation of legal texts into more understandable, human readable text. I must say it's in Dutch, so not for everyone as readable, but I'm going to present how this looks and feels. I'll share my screen. Share. All right. Vincent, a quick nod if you see Yeah, okay. So this is the application. These are real world activities. I'm going to do a specific one. This is the permit check, the permit application. And here I can see the legislation written as it is, a formal legal text. I'm going to do the check now because that's for citizens and companies who want to know something. And I have to do this on a specific location. I'm going to use an address in Utrecht. That's central Netherlands. So I've selected now based on an address, and I'm going to do the next step. Now I'm going to choose my real world activity, and I want to apply layers on metal. And based on keywords, I can choose between several real world activities. And this one says layers on metal, which is the one I'm going to choose. I have to make a more specific choice because it wants to know what kind of field of business I'm working, which is a metal company. And well, this is what I'm going to do, applying layers on metal. Okay. Now I have selected my activity, my real world activity. And in the next step, all the relevant DMN files are brought forward so I can answer the questions which they give me. And what we see is all kinds of question groups. These are all question groups. And they're from several different organizations. Those are all from the federal government, het Rijk, and those two are from a municipality. So you see here a combination of several laws, several different organizations. What you can also see is if I answer something, all things that are not relevant are skipped. So you see a lot of lesser question groups. I'm going to answer this one as well. Yes, I'm going to transport things, and I'm going to do that at night as well. And in the range of a building, all kinds of things are built in here to help the user answer their questions. And I need to answer something else, this one, right? Now, in the next step, I'll get the conclusion of what I answered here. So it says I have to give information about, and this is the name of the legal activity, geluid veroorzaakt door activiteiten with a little help text. So I have to give information to my organization about the activity which I'm going to perform. There are some other remarks here, and I have to inform that I'm going to do something which might damage the environment, and I have to give information about that as well. Well, this is the outcome, all the yellow things I have to do. So, and I can apply for those permits right now. Going to aanvragen. I have to log in. This is the official part, because if I really apply, then it's an official thing which might cost me money. And this is a thing which we have right now for testing purposes. It's not the real world yet. And I have to fill in some information. It takes my address, so it remembers that one. It has all the things, all the forms which I have to fill in for the things which I need to apply a permit for. And in the next step, you see those activities, the legal activities, and I have to answer questions which look slightly different than in the check part. These are just multiple selection options, but in the next page you see I have to add documents. So I can fulfill my entire permit application. And as Vincent already mentioned, all my details will be fetched from the governmental database containing my information about where I live, what my name is, what my contact details are. And then a few pages further, I can actually apply for this permit. That's the demo for now. Over to Vincent.
Okay, thank you, Annemieke.
I have to stop share. Yes.
Yep. So I can do the sharing again. Okay, then, well, as you've seen, we have rules from different layers of authorities. So that we have different different rule makers from all kinds of the country. So we cannot do that without any kind of standardization, because otherwise the central portal cannot understand the rules that are delivered. So that's why we have 3 new standards in the system. There is, of course, a standard for the official publications, which is a new standard, which prescribes the setting up of legal documents, which are machine readable documents. So next to the flat text, they can be annotated with legal objects that can be used in other parts of the system. We have the standard of applications. As we have seen, we just did an application that prescribes which information should be in an application, so the deciding body can decide on the application. And of course, and that's the main topic of today, we have a new standard for applicable rules, as we call them in a digital system. You see how they all cooperate, the 3 standards. We have nearly 400 of governing bodies who set up their laws, their local regulations based on the standard. Those laws are translated into decision models, which use parts of the legal documents, for instance, the activities or the locations or some further information. And those decision models are uploaded into the system to be available for the applicant's portal. And we've just seen that an application is done, and then it goes back to the authority where it came from, and he can decide on the application based on the standard for applications. As I said, well, we have the official publications, which is annotated with objects, so it's machine readable. As this is just a different view, but it's important to understand that the rule engine directly interprets facts which are derived from the official publications. For instance, we saw Annemieke drawing in a location where the project is being performed. Well, it can be the case that there are specific rules valid on that location. And the rule engine directly asks the legal documents if those rules are valid on that location. So we have a quite strict connection between legal publications and the decision rules or the decision logic that is used in the system. And that's quite unique in our solution. Well, the most important standard, of course, is the standard for applicable rules. The standard, well, it depends quite largely on the DMN standard, and well, it consists of 2 documents. We have a functional specification, and we have an information model. And well, as we said, the standard is needed to facilitate to do a permit check or to apply for a permit based on the decision logic, which is on their part based on the legal rules. And all competent authorities, almost 400, as we said, they have to translate their legal rules into the decision rules, which we will be needing in the system. So these decision rules are understandable translation of the legal rules. The STTR, well, it lays down the agreements on the semantics and the syntax. And in the information model, further describes how all the elements of the STTR are connected to each other. And well, basically, the STTR supports the semantic interoperability of the models of all the different parts of the layer cake. So if a model is made by a community, it is basically it uses the same syntax and the same semantics as a model that is delivered by the national government or even the water board. So by using the standard, well, we made sure that well, the models understand each other and can be executed through the portal as part of the system. To be more sure that they also work, we also set up a legal basis in the law that every authority who is delivering their applicable rules need to follow the STTR. So if they do not, well, then we cannot execute the rules. We even cannot accept the rules into our system. If we dive a little bit deeper into the STTR, well, you can see, or probably you can't see, but it's based on DMN for the most part. Well, we've chosen for DMN as the core of STTR because, of course, the DMN decision rules can be understood and used directly by a Drools rule engine without any need for manual transformation. You quite often see a transformation from business rules to execution rules, but we don't need to do that because DMN is directly understood by our rule engine. On the other side, DMN is also very suitable for legal experts to do a validation if the decision logic is correct, if it's based on the legal document, if every legal rule is correctly translated into the decision logic. So that's also a very big advantage of the use of DMN. And of course, we have direct traceability between the legal sources and the decision rules by specification. And next, of course, to the automatic traceability that we have from the legal objects that we use in our decision logic. But well, unfortunately, that's not enough. We also had to use the DMN extension elements because, well, DMN gives us, well, very great advantages, but well, we needed more. DMN, of course, has a declarative character, and that's not always suitable for the interaction you just saw in the demo by Annemieke. Sometimes sequence can be important. Sometimes you want to ask some questions before other questions in the interaction with the user, and well, the DMN as such does not give an opportunity for that. So that's why we have extended DMN with extra layers. Also, we have a quite extensive use of input rules, which is sketched the use of registrations, official registrations. We need to have a way to connect real-world data with the inputs we use in DMN. So that's also a part of the extension we have made. When we look at execution, we also made use of the extension elements to be able to do dynamic questioning. You saw some questions disappear after an answer Annemieke gave. And well, that's also not out of the box behavior of DMN and the Drools execution. So that's also something that we have added to DMN. And next to that, to be fully able to support the layer cake, we've also introduced, as we call them, connection points to be able to combine several DMN files from different authorities, and we will see that later. So the basis is DMN, but we need some extras on it. As you can also see in the layer model, all the decision rules, all the decision logic is based on DMN. But we have also set up an input rule layer where all the input data is specified. For instance, the one who is making the rule maker can specify a question. That is a question that is directly asked to the applicant. For instance, what are you going to do? How high is the building that you're going to build? All the questions that only an applicant knows. But also, it's possible to connect the official registries, so you don't need to ask a question to the applicant, and that's also something that can be specified in the input rule layer. Next to that, as I just explained, you can also automatically take a decision based on geometry, and that's also part of the input rules. So we have a quite extensive means to specify different ways to connect the real world facts with the input that is needed to take a decision. Well, another layer is the interaction rule layer. As we have seen, well, there are groups in the portal, but also more information and the way the whole look and feel of the portal. That is also something that is delivered by the STR file in the interaction rules. So you can also specify behavior in the STR file, so that you can well, directly have influence on the questioning in the portal. So that's all those layers. Well, they make sure that the logic is executed on the right way using the relevant input rules. And well, let's take us more in detail into the DMN. So, Annemieke.
Yes. We had to do some things as well to make sure that the portal works properly. So, for example, you see that in the conclusion, that the output of the top table, the top decision table of the DMN file is specified into specific outcomes. So the portal exactly knows what it should mention on the screen to the user. And you also see the extra layer of input rules with questions underneath the inputs, which you know from the normal DMN display, ways of displaying. Then we're going to look a bit in an XML file. I will highlight a few things which we have done in here, because there's something which is in the naming and making the file unique. Can you go to the next slide, Vincent? Because we have all those different authorities all making their rules. We had to come up with a naming convention to make everything unique. So there is this number, this digit, which is identifying the organization which has put in the DMN file. And we have a naming convention to make sure what type of DMN file this is. Is it for the permit check or for the permit application? And so this makes it unique in our entire base of DMNs. So this is a way of identifying it. This is one thing we extra put in as an extension element. And the other one is the interaction layer. You see here there are different groups defined, and they have their own priority. So this makes sure which group is first and which group will be asked next in the portal. And the names you see here are also the names that are put on the screen for the user. So this gives you a way to make the user interaction more logically or user-friendly. All right, so this is extension rule for the input layer. We call them uitvoeringsregel in Dutch. And you see all kinds of specs which you can add to this input layer. And you see the question. This is a, you see, yeah, the question is, it's a string-based question, And there is a additional information which says how to answer this question. And that's all in this extension element. So all kinds of things like the question text, like the priority within the question group, and help texts are embedded in this extension element, the DMN. Okay.
Okay, then how do we execute all those rules? So a rule composed of all the layers is uploaded into to the system, and I will speed up a bit because otherwise we will be running out of time. So it's uploaded. Basically, the whole file is uploaded into the system after being validated. So we validate if the file complies to the syntax and the semantics as stated in the STTR, and also against the DMN specifications. And once stored, it is ready for execution in our database. And on execution, well, basically, as we have seen from the start, all possible relevant questions are posed to the applicant based on the activity and the location he is performing his activity on. And well, after questions are answered, we try to make a decision. And if we cannot make a decision yet, then based on the rules facts, we ask again questions to the user, and that loops until we can take a decision about a permit check or a permit application. Well, what is more interesting is that, as we said, using the DMN extension elements, we've also extended the use on the execution side. So we have introduced the dynamic questioning, which provides a means to only ask the questions that are relevant. As you might know, rules is just working with a bucket of facts and then tries to make a decision. But we do not want to ask a user questions which may be relevant for a decision, but not for the specific decision that the user expects. So there we have introduced the dynamic questioning. And the other part is, well, being able to connect the different rules of the different authorities. We've introduced the topic of the connection points, which can be seen a bit as decision services, but it's not quite the same. Well, we have seen the dynamic questioning in the demo that Annemieke just given. Just when a question is answered, the questions that are no longer relevant well, they fall away, you don't see them. And if an applicant changes a question, then questions may become relevant again. And well, in the execution, we re-evaluate the whole set of facts and decides which facts may become relevant again. So we can ask them to the applicant. So that's basically how dynamic questioning works. Then we come to a very interesting topic of the connection points. That's something Annemieke knows everything about.
Yes, we use the invoke function of DMN to make a connection point. And a connection point is as much as a decision in a modern DMN in which you can insert a different other DMN rules, decisions, and inputs in another file which you add to it. So you can locally create different rules on a specific place in the DMN. So you see in the blue example on the bottom of the page, there's a new decision with a sub-decision, and different inputs is embedded in the modern DMN, and this together will be executed in the portal. So you can make differentiations based on legal rules on a specific location. So authority 1 can enter other rules in this connection point as another authority. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, this shows this in an example with the geography. So every other authority can enter his own rules in the modern DMN. All right, and we're going to see a sample of this in the DMN. So we did this by giving some naming conventions to the specific decision, which is the aansluitpunt. We used a namespace with a standard value of true. And if you go to the next slide, you will see this in the DMN. We use the invoke function. Naming is very specific here, but this makes it possible to, in the entire set of DMNs, to know exactly to which connection point I'm referring and where I want to put my local connection, which is on the next slide. Yes, so a local connection refers to the identifying mark of the DMN, the model DMN, and the naming of the decision. And this makes it possible to combine several DMNs in one, in one flow of questions. All right. Then the real world application, almost 400 authorities need to do this in the Netherlands. And so their first reaction to decision modeling is, what? What should we do? What do you mean? What do we have to do? And once they see the logic of decision tables, which is quite helpful for a lot of them, I must say, then they don't know how to do it. So we're practicing with almost 400 authorities, citizens, software vendors, and companies to make this a more vivid community, to build a kind of ecosystem around this new law, to make it technically good working and good for the end user. In most cases, the quality of their digital information of the organizations themselves is, there's room for improvement, so to say. And by digitizing it, it becomes very clear what to do. So what is the status of it in the real world? And that's a lot of work for them. Not really the DMN part, but more the rest of it, the entire digital information position they have. But that is a challenge. On the other hand, we have some opportunities, and that is that we have more than 10 new software vendors capable of exporting STTR and DMN. There's a lot of building knowledge hubs in the Netherlands about decision modeling. And we can use those real world experience to improve the standard and the rule engine on the way. So everyone is practicing right now to make sure that it's foolproof when the act will be put into place on the 1st of July next year.
Yes, and that brings us to the end of our presentation. So I hope you all enjoyed the presentation, and I can understand that there may be a lot of questions. So I don't know if you have any interesting questions to answer.
That was great, Annemieke and Vincent. Thank you very much for this. It's I actually did some work with Dutch tax not that long ago, and I know there's a lot of technology innovation that goes on for a relatively small country. You've done such a great job of having all this, rules and publications incorporated in your system. So I think that's a great thing going on there. We do have a number of questions. Ron Ross has asked a number of questions, and also Jacob is asking questions over on Slack. So if we don't get to them all, if one or both of you can go over there and respond to some of the questions over there. But Ron has a really good one to start. Actually, his first two questions are kind of one thing. It's about who translates the legislation to DMN form. Is this the government bodies themselves? Do they have help? And how do you deal with ambiguities and conflicts within and across legislation?
I think Annemieke can answer that the best, because she's our ambassador in the world.
Yes, it's a mix really. Some organizations say we want to do it ourselves. We want someone dedicated to do this. But then they are going to look for this person, and it's difficult to find one. Sometimes it's a legal employee who has the skills to do this. Sometimes they get help from a company to help them with consultancy. We also do a lot of working groups where we do this together. So in the government, the central government is helping them in realizing what they should do and learning them how to do it. Mm-hmm. And then again, it's difficult to embed this knowledge and this skill set in your organization. So that's what most organizations are struggling with right now. Who's going to do this? And how much time and money does it cost me?
Right. And is the system live now, or is it still a proof of concept?
No, the system is well, it's not legally live, but we have an environment that is live, and it is used now for testing purposes and well, tryouts and well, also everything an authority has to do, we can do with the system at this moment. So it is possible to publicize a legal document. It is possible to publicize decision rules, and it is even possible to do an application. But it's not the real thing. That will go live in the 1st of July in 22.
Okay, all right. And how easy would it be to extend what you've done to other jurisdictions, so other areas of the Dutch government, or even other countries, other EU countries, or internationally? Or are there things that are inherent in those layers of your application that you showed that are specific to your environmental regulations, or could this be extended to other areas?
Well, I think it can be extended to other areas, because the interesting part of the STTR standard is that it's based on this layer model, which acknowledges that there are different types of decision rules which shouldn't be mingled. For instance, you don't want your logic to be mingled with implementation logic. So we have divided that into the real decision logic, which is an isomorphic translation of the legal rules, and the input data, which is basically the part where you can model where you should get the information from to give input to the logic. And well, that's not specific for the Dutch environmental law. That can also be applied to tax law or whatever kind of law.
Well, that's what I thought after working with the tax authority. It's just like, oh, well, there's probably a lot of applications here that could be done in the same way. So it's actually one of Ron's questions was about this. Seems to be very oriented to the idea, like, can this particular entity or thing be licensed or not? And are there other kinds of uses for, like, other kinds of questions you could ask of the system, other types of questions?
Yeah, well, that's quite easily possible. But what's rather unique in the environmental law part is that we have 400 governing bodies who all make their laws and all make their applicable rules, and it all has to come together. Where you see more. What you more see is just one body who's making the rules and is making the business rules and is doing the execution. But we have to provide a system which does the execution for 400 different lawmakers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the problem. Is like you say, you've got all of these different parties involved, and just trying to find some ways to bring them all together. Now, you've done a great job. We're going to have to cut off here because we have another presentation starting at the top of the hour, but there are some outstanding questions on Slack. If you guys can go over there and get into the discussion over there, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for
great job.
For your time.
Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so we're going to get ready for the next presenter now, which is Chris Berg from InRule, and we will be starting in about 7 minutes.